A of yoga, people who have experiential understanding of yoga, they should be involved in the research. So, for example, and that's where I think Ramakrishna Mission, this is absolutely the perfect place, because most of you are sadhus or nurses. So I guess the understanding of the spiritual science is very, very important. And if you don't understand the spiritual science, you're not going to understand the objectivity of modern medicine. However, said that, modern medicine actually has changed itself. In the last 2, 3 decades, there have been massive research in yoga, and I'm going to talk about some of those today. I think it will be good. Thanks for sending me the contact list. I think we'll get in touch with the whole team and see how we can do things together.
So, sir, shall we get started? It just according to our clock, it is 6 p.m. IST.
Yeah.
I think we can.
Okay. Is Swamiji going to come or no?
Yes, we just checked. I think he's in another meeting. He will join us somewhere in between.
Okay.
I request you to.
Okay. And there's a different screen for other people, right? The normal for the other viewers, there's a different screen, correct?
No, sir. This is the
They
same.
don't join. Oh, other people join here too.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought for the viewers you have a different. It's the same. So everybody joins the same Zoom.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, got it. Okay. Let me. Would you mind if I record also?
Yes, we are actually recording automatically. We'll share.
Okay, so you can send me.
Yes,
Good, good.
we will send you, sir. So, may I take the liberty to introduce you very briefly from
Please,
what I gather from
please.
the website. So, as all of us know that this webinar series is going on, it is sponsored by the Inter-University Center for Yogic Sciences in commemoration of the Azadi ka AmritMahotsav and the International Day of Yoga 2022. We are organizing this webinar series. It is sponsored by the Ministry of Ayush. And we have lined up very eminent speakers. And today we have a very, very special person with us, Dr. Indranill Basu Roy, who is the founder of the American Association for Yoga and Meditation. He is a cardiologist. He has very many accolades to his credit. He is an avid practitioner of meditation and yoga. He started meditation at the age of 6 and was initiated in Kriya Yoga by the great Kriya Yoga master and a disciple of Sri Yukteswar Giri Swami Hariharananda. He has been practicing Kriya under his guidance of many Kriya Yoga masters. He is a cardiologist and at the Memphis VA Hospital and an adjunct professor at the University of Memphis, Tennessee. He is also visiting professor of cardiology and head of integrative cardiology at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Rishikesh, in Uttarakhand. So with these few words, I really look forward to your talk, sir. So please, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much for that rather onerous introduction. I don't think I deserve all that, but I'd like to thank Swami Atmapriyananda ji for giving me this opportunity to talk. Whatever little I learned, whatever I know, is thanks to the tradition of some of the most powerful people in Indian philosophy and the yoga philosophy. I'd like to thank my gurus for giving me this opportunity today. What I am going to talk, whatever I know, whatever little I'm going to talk today is with their blessing. So we'll start with a prayer to our gurus. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheswara. Sorry, can you guys hear me or no?
Yes, yes, sir.
Guru Shakshat Param Brahma, Tejashi Bhare Guru Samate. Um, so what I'm going to talk today, it's very important because, and that's why I want to give initiation as to what I'm going to speak today. So Atmapriyanandaji has been wanting me to talk on this three topic, on the topic of the three hearts. Very, very interesting topic, but topic has got a problem too. What is the problem? The problem is this requires an understanding of both the yogic philosophy and modern science. Not only that, as all of you know, modern science comes with some amount of objectivity, whereas yogic science comes with understanding the human body on a different aspect. So in today's talk, I'm going to bring both of them together in one platform. So we are going to talk about the yogic science, and then I'm going to talk about the modern science and try to bring them together to present a picture of what the three hearts are and what is the view of me as a cardiologist. But it is important to remember it is not my view only as a cardiologist. I have been also initiated into the yogic pathway many, many years back. It's almost 30-35 years back. So that understanding is very important when we try to understand what the heart is, what the role of the heart is, and where we are today. So years back, Swami Vivekananda said, when there is a conflict between the heart and the brain, let the heart be followed. Because intellect has only one state, reason, and within that intellect works and cannot get beyond. It is the heart which takes one to the highest plane which intellect cannot reach. What a powerful word! And today we'll have some glimpses that this is not only a philosopher talking, but this is also a scientist talking. And I'll explain to you why I think that. Because I am a physician scientist who also practices yoga. So we'll try to bridge both the understanding to some extent today. So first, let's understand the physical heart. The physical heart is an extremely powerful organ. It does.
Your heart is a pump. It's a muscular organ about the size of your fist and is located slightly left of center in your chest. Your heart is divided into the right and left side. The division protects oxygen-rich blood from mixing with oxygen-poor blood. Together, your heart and blood vessels comprise your cardiovascular system, which circulates blood and oxygen around your body. In fact, your heart pumps about 5 quarts of blood every minute, and it beats about 100,000 times in one day. That's about 35 million times in a year. Oxygen-poor blood, blue blood, returns to the heart after circulating through your body. The right side of the heart, composed of the right atrium and ventricle, collects and pumps the blood to the lungs through the pulmonary arteries. The lungs refresh the blood with a new supply of oxygen, making it turn red. Oxygen-rich blood, red blood, then enters the left side of the heart, composed of the left atrium and ventricle, and is pumped through the aorta to the body to supply tissues with oxygen. 4 valves within your heart keep your blood moving the right way. The tricuspid, mitral, pulmonary, and aortic valves work like gates on a fence. They open only one way and only when pushed on. Each valve opens and closes once per heartbeat, or about once every second. A beating heart contracts and relaxes. Contraction is called systole, and relaxing is called diastole. During systole, your ventricles contract, forcing blood into the vessels going to your lungs and body, much like ketchup being forced out of a squeeze bottle. The right ventricle contracts a little bit before the left ventricle does. Your ventricles then relax during diastole and are filled with blood coming from the upper chambers, the left and right atria. Then the cycle starts over again. Your heart is nourished by blood too. Blood vessels, called coronary arteries, extend over the surface of your heart and branch into smaller capillaries. Here you can see just the network of blood vessels that feed your heart with oxygen-rich blood. Your heart also has electrical wiring, which keeps it beating. Electrical impulses begin high in the right atrium and travel through specialized pathways to the ventricles, delivering the signal to pump. The conduction system keeps your heart beating in a coordinated and normal rhythm, which in turn keeps blood circulating. The continuous exchange of oxygen-rich blood with oxygen-poor blood is what keeps you alive.
So the physical heart is one of the most fascinating organ that nature has created. In one day, there's a mountain in Japan called the Fiji Mountain. If you take an elephant up and down the Fiji Mountain 600 times, that is the work that your heart does. The physical heart or the heart in the physical body. Now let's talk about the other body. As we know, we have three bodies. Let's talk about the astral body. Based on yogic sciences, astral body is made up of 19 elements. This is a way we feel our pleasure, our pain. It also relates to our senses. There are 5 organs of action known as karma indriyas. There are 5 organs of knowledge known as jnana indriyas. There are 5 pranas, which we'll talk about a little more. There are 4 elements of the inner instrument or antakarana. And these include what we call mind, intellect or buddhi, subconsciousness or chitta, and ego or ahankara. So these 19 elements make our the so-called astral body, the body that is used for feeling and sensing. Now, based on yogic philosophy, the physical bodies are, and the other 2 bodies, the subtle body, which we just talked about, the astral body, or the causal, and then the causal body, is divided into multiple sheets, and each sheet has got certain typical functions, which is very clear as we get to know the name. The physical body is called the Annamaya Kosha, so that is the sheet that is formed because of the food we eat. So the food you eat provides that body, and that cannot be more than true, as we'll find out scientifically why. You eat a normal food, you eat sattvic food, you remain healthy. You don't eat a sattvic food, you die suddenly. You have heart disease, you get cancers. The subtle body has got 3 different layers. One is the layer of energy or the pranamaya kosha. One is the layer of emotion, mind, which is called the manamaya kosha, and then one of wisdom, which is called vijnanamaya kosha. And then you have the so-called causal body, seed body, whatever you guys call it. It's called. It has got the anandamaya. It is called the anandamaya kosha or the bliss body. There are some multiple older yogic talk about the position of the soul in the body. We really don't know where it is, but according to some scriptures, I showed you the heart. And I showed you where electrical impulse starts in the heart. Slightly right to that, more centered to the body, is believed to be the residence of the soul, which drives the entire 3 bodies. But we'll talk a little more. So the astral body, just like I showed you the physical body, the astral body's heart is at the level of what is known as the Anahata chakra, as you can see. So what are these chakras? We'll talk a little more about that. These are the constituent of the astral body that carry energy. Everything that the physical body does, based on the yogic science, is controlled by energy. And that energy is provided by the pranamaya kosha. So that energy consists of multiple things, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But among the different centers, there are multiple. There are 7 different centers of energy, principal centers. There are multiple small chakras also. We'll not talk about that. So it is at the level of Anahata chakra that the astral body's heart lies. Now, a little more understanding. This is of the chakras. This is a picture of Babaji, Mahavatar Babaji, and printed on him are the different chakras. These are the energy vortices where the power of energy can rise, starting from the base, which is below the coccyx, called the Muladhara, and then it goes up to different levels. The one at the level of the sexual organ is called Sadhistan. The one at the level of your abdomen is called Manipura. One in the heart is called Anahata. One in the throat is called Swadhistan. One between just above your eyebrows is the Agga chakra, and again there are some thought processes which based on different scriptures it is different. Some people believe it's 1.5 inch below the Sahasrara, which is the Brahmatalu, and 1.5 inches deep inside this, which could be, according to some, the pineal gland. Some people think it is the pituitary. That is the location of what is called the Center for Christ Consciousness, or the Shiva's cave, where the Agga chakra resides. And remember, these are not physical. I am a cardiologist, so I go inside the heart every day in a minimally invasive form. Neither can I see the soul, nor I can see any of the chakras, because this exists possibly in a different dimension, maybe a higher dimension at a higher energy level. We'll talk a little bit about some of those, because modern science has just started understanding them. So we'll talk a bit about that. So this is in short what the astral body is all about. I do want to talk a little bit about pranayam, especially for people who don't understand it. 99% of even Indians think pranayam is a breathing technique. Prana has nothing to do with breathing. I'm not saying that. Swami Vivekananda says that, and that's absolutely true. Pranayam is the control of prana. Everything that is happening in you, everything that is happening in the universe, everything that is happening in the multiple universes is controlled by prana. And then, so it's said that as blood is the vehicle of oxygen, so mind is the vehicle of prana. This is the whole secret of revitalizing and rejuvenating the body. Very, very important statement. Those who practice sadhana, they will know mind is extremely powerful. You can actually direct your mind to direct the prana to different parts of the body, and in fact, even activate chakras with them. But we shall not talk about that today. But this is just to understand that the entire concept of prana as an energy, it's not a breathing technique. The breathing techniques help to activate prana, it helps to balance the prana, but they are not equivalent to being breathing. Let's go to the next slide. So how does this energy work? The energy works through fine channels, and again, these channels are not the channels that we find in the physical body. In the physical body, you know, there are veins. We showed you the video of the heart. There are veins bringing in dirty blood from all over the body to the heart, which gets purified from the lung. And after getting purified from the lung, they come to the heart, and from the heart there are blood vessels which take it to all over the body. So this is these are the two types of channels we have in the physical body. The third type of channel we have is lymph glands. There are multiple channels carrying lymph. The fourth we have is called nerves. They're not really channels because they are not empty like a tube, unlike these three. But some people do call them channels. But nadis are basically a channel that are used to convey energy all over the body. So even the thought process, how we think now, there are very, very interesting, very interesting concepts about how we think, how quantum mechanics is used by the brain to think. Almost like, the funny part is that science is becoming more and more metaphysical nowadays. And what I'm talking is 100% science. I'm not talking about some fantasy just because I practice yoga. Now, how many nadis are there? God only knows. And this, I guess, by your own practice, different authors have written different things. Shiva Samhita says there are 350,000 nadis. But what is more important to understand is the three important nadis are the one that lies parallelly to the left of the spine, one that lies to the right of the spine. They are called Ida and Pingla respectively. And in the center, there is a channel going on, starting from the Muladhara where I showed you to the top of the brain, in the place of the Brahmatalu, where the anterior fontanelle is. And that's very easy. If you go and feel your head, you'll feel, and go on giving pressures, you'll find there's a place where if you put pressure as if you're making a hole, it's not solid like the rest of the brain. That's the Brahmatalu, that is the anterior fontanelle. So Sushumna itself is not just hollow. It has got other more subtle channels within it, which we'll not talk about today. But the Hatha Yoga Pradipika and Goraksha Samhita quotes, there are 72,000 naris, which is mostly explained. This is again another picture of Mahavatar Babaji. There are multiple techniques given in Hatha Yoga, Goraksha Samhita, and other where how you can activate this, so that you activate the prana that not only moves you but moves the whole universe inside you, as well as the outside universe, both inside and outside, because there's a saying in Hindu philosophy that if you control yourself, you control the universe. So all the nadis are supposed to originate from a small egg-like structure which is situated on below the coccyx. It is actually somewhere between in a human being, somewhere between the sexual organ and the anus, where we pass our stool. If a straight line is drawn at the lowest part, that's where the Muladhara chakra is. There are techniques to activate the Muladhara chakra. We will not go into that today. So, and there are people who can feel these chakras as part of yogic techniques. That's how you activate them. So so that's one. And the second is in the heart, the anahata that I told you. So these are the two places from where this naris originate. And they spread all over the body. It is important to understand that the energy channels might actually leave your physical body. And there is understanding that all the three bodies together are not inside your physical body. That's a wrong understanding. A lot of people believe they spread outside. We can't see them. So your body ends here, but this is only your physical body. Your other bodies might even extend way outside the physical parameters. Then we come to the last, or the causal body, which contains the seed or the blueprint of the gross bodies. It is a body which is much harder to sense. Deep samadhis make you feel such bodies. There are innumerable history, as you know, in our where people have even come out of their physical body using different techniques. And I think one very famous is of Shankaracharya. When Shankaracharya, at the age of very young age, I think not even 25 or 28, he gave up his body when he was pretty young. So I think 32. At that age, he beat everybody, all the biggest intellectuals in the country. So while having the final dialogue with Mandana Mishra's wife, she tells him that how can you be a sannyasi because you've never married, you never had sex. So sannyasi is somebody who understands everything, has the feeling of sex, and has to have a control of it. So he leaves his body, enters the body of a king, and does it. So this is not the sole story of Shankaracharya. There are techniques in Kriya Yoga also, where physical bodies can be brought out. But this is just to make you understand that causal body are something, these are not just fantasies. People who have achieved that level of calmness, that level of single-pointed thinking, who have got into samadhis, they have, and history is full of them, have an understanding what this body is. So it links to our bigger self. It contains all our previous experiences, memories, habits, information of all the lives we have lived. So when Gautama became Buddha, he told about all his previous birth because they are all stored. These are like a computer. You might erase everything when you take a new birth, because you get a new brain. So that brain contains nothing. You grow the brain from zero. And don't forget, the brain is not part of the mind. The brain is just an instrument to interpret consciousness. Consciousness is there in everything. That's a different topic. We'll not talk about that today. But this causal body is not amenable to feel. It is amenable, but you got to reach that level of energy to avail of it. And as I said, the history, our yogic history has full of evidences that it is accessible by those Mahatmas who have reached that level of samadhi. So the astral and the causal bodies remain together at the time of death, and they exit the physical body to take rebirth. And as you know, a lot of sadhus and sannyasis who have powerful age, they can actually dictate their rebirth, where they want to take a birth. So unless you know your causal body and your astral body, there's no way you can get into another physical body. So it's not strange. So I tried to give you a general understanding, because I know quite a few of you might know all these, but I purposely did that because there could be other people, especially scientists, who may not have an understanding of the yogic thought process. Now I'll be going through the science behind this so that you understand how, as a cardiologist, I practice yogic science in physical medicine. You guys might know we just came out with a book that brings out all the research with heart disease, and it is written by over 75 top authorities from all over the world, starting from Harvard, Emory, including India's top universities, All India Institute, PJ, Chandigarh. I'll talk a bit about that later on. But so from now on, I'm going to talk about the physical body on a scientific aspect and try to correlate with the yogic philosophy. So it is important to understand that the mind and the brain are two different entities, according to modern medicine, for the last 2000 years. Contrarily, yoga believes they are both same. So what that means is, whatever mind thinks, body does. Whatever body does, mind knows. Thankfully, in the last 20 years, modern medicine has actually changed to start believing that. Now we know. Before, they used to say, okay, there are psychosomatic illnesses, which means these are illnesses caused by the brain on the body. And you could number them, 5, 6, 7, 10. Yoga said, no, everything is psychosomatic. And everything is soma-psychotic, which means there is a massive interaction between the heart and the brain, which till 20 years back, modern medicine did not accept. Today we know. Every second, whatever is happening in your mind is coming to your body. Whatever is happening in your body is related back to the mind. Initially, it was thought the only connection between the mind and the body is nerves, but now we know there are multiple other ways to connect. Not only there is nerve, there is electrical flow through the nerves, but there are also chemicals which constantly pass between body and the brain and take in information. There are cells which pass from the body to the brain, from the brain to the body, and create different environments, both inside and outside. So mental and psychological stress is one of the major risk factors of all the cardiac diseases. Because the physical heart depends on your mind. The feedback it gets from your mind makes it work. So when you have psychological stress, you have to have high blood pressure, you have to have diabetes, you have to have stroke, you have to have sudden cardiac death, which means you die so suddenly that even if you have a telephone number and you try calling a telephone, before that you die. Or even an ambulance comes to your place, before the ambulance can get to your hospital, you die. If you take a place like Seattle, which is in America, and there it takes 6 minutes for a helicopter or an ambulance to come to you if you call the number 911, which is meant to call urgent emergency, 70% of people die before they reach an hospital. So why does brain does that? We'll explain that shortly. Why is our body created like that? We'll talk to that shortly. But it is very important to understand that if you really have to understand the yogic philosophy. Now, the stress response implies that the sympathetic nervous system is activated, and there is corresponding secretion of drugs like adrenaline and noradrenaline. What does adrenaline cause? Adrenaline causes your heart to go fast. So from 72 to 80 beats per minute, now that you're listening to me, it will go fast to 200 beats per minute, or even part of the heart can go to 400 beats per minute in seconds if I release a massive amount of adrenaline in your blood. And if that continues for some time, you will die through what is known as sudden cardiac death, or you'll have a massive heart attack. So it is important to understand that the brain has complete control over the body. So what was initially thought in medicine for the last 2000 years, that brain and body communicate only in selected areas, is complete nonsense. Now we know every second of the brain and body is connected towards each other. And we'll learn a little more about that as we go to the next understanding of our next thing. So this is the living example that you just saw a couple of days back. Singer, KK, died of a massive heart attack. So you might, and this is very typical, we'll talk a little more about this.
Atherosclerosis is a disease that affects all the arteries of the human body and which develops over time. It is characterized by the accumulation of fatty deposits on the lining of the arteries, which are called plaques of atherosclerosis. These plaques cause a narrowing of the arteries. When atherosclerosis affects the coronary arteries, it's known as coronary disease.
So when you have stress, there's activation of the sympathetic nervous system. Activation of the sympathetic nervous system, as I said, causes release of multiple dangerous chemicals like adrenaline, noradrenaline. Brain itself starts sending a bunch of chemicals like interleukin, which are highly dangerous. You have enough of interleukin in your blood, you can kill yourself in seconds. So the heart rate goes up, and this is maintained over time, creating high blood pressure. So when you're having high blood pressure today, diagnosed for the first time, don't forget that this was there 30 years back when you actually started. And today 45% of the planet's adult population have high blood pressure. Some know about it, some do not know about it. This leads to atherosclerosis, that is what you just heard. Blockage of the blood vessel supplying the heart, causing ischemic heart disease or heart attack, cerebrovascular accident or stroke. So as these blockages happen, you can die suddenly or you can die slowly. By that time, you can be moved to a hospital where you can get treated. So stress is the basic understanding as the cause. So suppose you are treated today with heart disease and you take all the best medications. You get a heart attack today, you are treated with all the best medications that modern medicine provides, which I do on a regular basis. So your chance of having another heart attack is reduced from 28% to around 14-15%. Very important to remember. That's where yoga comes. You got to understand this. It is not zero. Why? Because there is no medicine on earth that can bring down stress. If you get one, you'll get Nobel Prize for that. The only medicine modern science accepts, and again I repeat, modern science accepts, it does not matter whether you and I, Indians, accept or don't accept. There's been tons and tons of research on that by some of Nobel laureates, is yoga. Only thing that completely annuls stress. We'll talk a little more about that in understanding the different bodies and their role. So all the worst nightmares of dying that you can have, all the worst one, you can have autonomic dysfunction causing problem with heart rate variability, and that will cause, let me get a laser pointer. So autonomic dysfunction, heart rate variability, that will cause cardiac instability, causing VT and VF. You die in seconds. Even you raise your hand to dial a number, you'll die before that. You can have, as I said, neuroendocrine activation, cortisol, catecholamines released. You can have increased blood pressure, increased heart rate, causing myocardial infarction. And there are innumerable results. Young film star Saurav Ganguly having massive heart attacks. And then you have the KK syndrome, sudden plug rupture, you die. It's not only KK, even that's how Kishore Kumar died, the famous singer. Sudden massive rupture of a plaque inside your body, and you die immediately in seconds. So whether it is ventricular tachycardia, whether it is atrial fibrillation, or the myocardial infarction, acute coronary syndrome, stroke, name it, everything has its origin in stress. And each of these are the largest killer in the world. Heart disease is world's #1 killer. It kills twice the number of people that is killed by cancer. And so by now you must have understood that most of this is preventable if you do appropriate things. Before I explain the autonomic nervous system, I'd like to show you this movie. Don't get scared seeing this movie.
No!
How does it feel when you're swimming and suddenly I'm sorry. How does it feel that you're in a small boat and you have a huge crocodile coming near you? Unfortunately, that was the scenario for all our predecessors. Today you get up in the morning, you meet your mother, your father, your wife, your child. You come and hug your kids. That is not how human beings grew up. We lived in the cave for over 4 million years. So when you got up in the morning, you might find a huge anaconda trying to get into your cave. Or you might find a saber-toothed tiger waiting to greet you the moment you step out of the cave. Or a large mammoth wanting to crush you into pieces. So you have two options. You either fight or you flight. So our predecessors must have done the right thing. That's why you and I are the predominant species in this planet. If they hadn't done the right thing, some other species would have dominated. So the flight and fight response that developed for 4 million years is the core of human physiology. Any yogi must understand that. That is the animal in a human being. And because of that, we are now the predominant species on this planet. So what is the problem? This has given a survival advantage for 4 million years. But today, we are not living in a cave. We are not accosted by slithering anacondas or a mammoth or a saber-toothed tiger. But the reaction the body has is same. What do I mean by that? Your next door has a bigger house than you. Your next door drives a better car. So you are jealous. Body does not understand jealousy. Brain does not understand jealousy. Brain will think that you're in danger. Brain will release chemicals that will make your heart go fast. Brain will release chemicals like interleukin 10, interleukin 6 that will damage your heart, that will damage your kidneys, that will damage your... Because you're in danger, you're saving your life is most important. The rest can be taken off later on. And this is not fiction. This is the actual truth of modern biology that you have to understand. That's where yoga comes into play. So if you are jealous because somebody has got a promotion and you have not, though you think you're more intelligent than him, what can you do? You are sad for a couple of days. But the sadness, brain does not know how to express sadness. Sadness is a thing of the mind. So what does the brain do? Brain releases the same chemical as if you are in danger. You are anxious because there is COVID everywhere. Your 80-year-old father and mother is staying with you. You don't know if they'll get COVID, and if they get COVID, they'll die. Brain does not understand anxiety. Anxiety is in your mind. Brain wants the body is again in danger, so the brain releases all the same chemicals that I named. I can name it over and over again. It doesn't matter what your mind thinks. Your brain is a physical organ which transforms them into fight or flight mechanism. So in today's world, flight and fight response is severely detrimental to cardiovascular health. And the problem is, you might think, oh, I have no stress, I look okay. Yes, because 99% of the stress is like an iceberg. It is in your subconsciousness. It is not in your consciousness. Less than 1% comes to your consciousness. But just because it is in your subconsciousness, it is not less lethal, it is equally lethal. So you got to clean your subconsciousness. That's what yoga does. We'll talk a little more about that. So a couple of things other than this mechanism, one of the other important thing that stress does is stimulate the autonomic nervous system, a part of the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic nervous system has two parts, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. The sympathetic gets stimulated, and chronic stimulation causes heart failure. It's called Takasubud's cardiomyopathy, where just because of stress, you get a massive dilated heart that fails. Heart failure by itself does not sound that bad. But my dear friends, let me inform you, other than a couple of cancer like pancreatic cancer, gastric cancer, heart failure prognosis is worse when untreated than every known cancer in human beings. Every known cancer. Stress can get you a heart failure in seconds. So it is very important to understand how lethal this system is. No wonder yoga says that you are an animal and you have to go towards Godhead. It is not philosophical statement. It is a true statement. It is an actual reality that you and I have to face every day in our life. Because this path that body has taken to come to this stage was essential for 4 million years. The 5,000 or 6,000 or 10,000 years that we are living as civilized persons is not enough to change the basic mechanism that existed for 4 million years. So the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis gets dysregulated. I don't want to go into the deeper science, but that causes heightened autonomic activity, as I tell you. The sympathetic discharge, there's a massive sympathetic discharge causing sudden cardiac death, causing rupture of blood vessels inside the brain, causing massive stroke. There's insulin resistance. You can take increased amount of insulin injection, nothing will happen. Your diabetes will be in the roof. There is uncontrolled hypertension or refractory hypertension. There's exaggerated inflammatory response. There are hundreds of inflammatory diseases like inflammatory bowel disease, rheumatoid arthritis, where there's inflammation all over the body. You don't die in those diseases, you don't die because of that disease. Nobody dies because of rheumatoid arthritis. Nobody dies because of SLE, all the inflammatory diseases. What do they die of? They die of heart disease. They die of acute heart attacks. So it is important to understand this complete dysregulation takes place due to stress. So sympathetic vs parasympathetic is another concept very interesting to understand if you want to understand the medicine behind yoga therapy. As I told you, you can see a helicopter coming and taking a patient. Only 30% of patients in America's, those cities which has got that efficient system, live. So imagine what is happening in India. A couple of days back, a friend of mine's very close friend, infectious disease doctor in Bombay, he trained in Australian infectious disease, came to India 12 years back and started infectious disease in Mumbai. Infectious disease, unfortunately, was not a known specialty in India. He's one of the first physicians to start. Did yeoman service during the COVID. As you remember, even we here for 1 year, I had to go and see COVID patients when I know there was no vaccine, when I know there was no medicines. So similarly, we had to see the worst COVID patients because those are the patients who are sick, they're in ICU. I as a cardiologist have to see them. All of them are having dangerous arrhythmias. So he saw these patients when there was no drugs, risking his life. 7 days back, he tries to get up on his car. He's been in every top hospitals in Bombay. Everybody knows him. He's almost a celebrity, starting from Just Lok, Beach Candy. So I'm told that he was trying to get up in his car. He fell down. He was unconscious. His driver immediately made him sit in the car and rushed to Beach Candy. It took 15 or 20 minutes before attack, or maybe 30 minutes to reach Beach Candy before the traffic. After that, they did resuscitation for almost 35 minutes. He's now a complete vegetable. So even if your ambulance reaches your house, that doesn't mean you will be in the hospital at the right time. And that's not only in India. It's even in the United States of America, where you have, it's a rich country where you have all this mechanism. So it is important to understand that if you have a house made of wood, it's no use making a house next to a fire station. The wood will burn anyway. So the way to treat is not understanding that I can go to the hospital and get better medicines, because medicine don't treat these things. Only yoga treats. So whether it is atrial fibrillation, which has got 25-30 million sufferers all over the world. India itself has maybe 10-12 million people. Ventricular tachycardia, which causes sudden death in minutes, like what happened to KK and other people. High SNS activity leading to refractory hypertension. India, as you know, is the headquarters of hypertension and diabetes. In 2025, it is predicted India will beat America as #1 place for hypertension and so in a country like India, where it's even difficult to treat tuberculosis, which is a completely treatable disease because medicines are costly, how can people be treated for heart disease? People will be dying in the streets. Private hospitals are not going to treat you unless they take money from you. If you cannot afford a full 1 year of drug for tuberculosis, for malaria, which kills 7 lakh people in India today, how do you expect a common man to be treated for heart disease? So these are important components that is important to understand. What is even worse is stress causes activation of the genes. As I told you, we started as an animal. And as an animal, we are human being today. So it is ingrained, the stress, and it's how to fight stress is activated or ingrained in our genetics. There are over 300 genes that is activated, and those genes are known as CTRA. Those genes will ensure that you have inflammation in the body, your heart starts going fast. Why? Because you have a couple of seconds to run from a mammoth. You have a couple of seconds to kill or fight a saber-toothed tiger. In that few seconds, you must have enough blood in your legs, you must have enough blood in your heart, enough blood in your hands to fight or kill that animal or run away from it. But when these genes are activated due to chronic stress, which most of us have, you're not fighting the saber-toothed tiger because there's no saber-toothed tiger living in your apartment. Neither are you trying to fight any crocodile which is creeping up in your doorstep. But you still continue to have inflammation, which cause all the known degenerative diseases. Cardiovascular disease, the largest killer, as I said, kills twice the number of people from cancer. Certain form of cancer, actually, whether the cancers are actually caused by inflammation, we don't know. There is controversy among oncologists. But it is clear that if you have chronic inflammation, your cancer will be more likely to spread in somebody who already has cancer. So it is important to understand that stress is so much ingrained for our survival that you even have genetic changes which are permanent that will cause stress. Even the cause of stress might have gone because your brain needs to be changed. Today you have a stress, the stress should go off, but if it stays back, your brain is permanently changed. As long as you live, your brain will always be thinking that you're stressed out and it will be acting like that. I'm not going to talk a lot about psychiatric illnesses, talking about depression. So 1 of 3 people all over the world have depression. Most of them don't even go to a doctor. In India, if you have depression and if you go to a doctor, or people will say, "Ye pagal hai kya? Is he mad? Why is he going to a doctor?" Everybody can have depression. It's a normal phenomenon of a human being to have depression. Now, if the depression is pathological, you need to go to a doctor. Somebody's mother dies and you don't have depression, then something is wrong with you. Your father dies, you're wrong with you. Your family, somebody dies because of COVID and you don't have depression, something is wrong with you. But when depression persists despite no cause or the cause has gone off, that's pathological. And for that, you have to go to a physician. And that doesn't mean that you're crazy or you have a psychiatric illness. And what is important to understand is depression, anxiety is anxiety, stress is stress. But if you have depression and by chance you have heart attack, your chance of dying is twice than the same person who has a heart attack but has got no depression. So imagine how lethal is stress, that our brain is completely captured by these situations and it behaves as if you're dying, and that's why it behaves in that way. Now let's go back to understand what yoga does. What yoga does, what your subtle heart in your astral body, what does it do to change all this situation that we talked about? Now we talked about sympathetic, parasympathetic. This diagram, don't bother about all this direct cognition, divine love. I just took this from the internet because I wanted to show. So this is the central channel that I talked about, Shoshana. On the two sides are Ida and Pingla in red and blue, and you can see they sort of come together like a DNA at each and every chakras, as you can see here. So each represents, say, a sympathetic and parasympathetic, and we will go slowly and you will see what it means. So when your Pingla is activated, you have sympathetic outflow, but when your Ida is activated, you have parasympathetic outflow. There are hundreds of yoga techniques, there's meditation, there's mindfulness, they all increase parasympathetic outflow. There are different types of pranayam, there are different types of breathing, for example, Ujjayi breathing that increases parasympathetic outflow. So that our nature having sympathetic outflow and predominantly sympathetic that we developed because we are an animal and had to live in a world with crocodiles, snakes, those days are gone. So if you want to still stay an animal and have a death like KK, you're welcome to it. Nobody can stop you. You can take the world's latest medicine that will protect you only partially, because the enemy lies within. There is no enemy outside. The enemy is within you, and you have to change that enemy. So what are the changes in the brain? Number one, your brain is completely changed. There's neuroplasticity. So I have a brain that is always anxious. I have a brain that is always stressed out. 4 weeks of meditation can completely change in the brain, will change the brain circuitry. How do I know? Because now we have functional MRI, we can go deep inside the brain and see what is going on. In this country and slowly in India, we are slowly finding, because people are living longer than before, people 80 years of age or older, 30-35% live in nursing homes because they have dementia. What is dementia? Their brain has gone smaller and smaller. If I take any one of us and do CT scan of our brain from age 30 to age 80, 90, at 30 you'll have a huge brain like this, 1600 cc. Every 10 years if you do a CT scan, your brain will go smaller and smaller and smaller. Till 90 you'll have almost like a monkey's brain like this. So obviously you forget your own name, you forget who your son is, you forget where you live. Obviously you cannot do any financial transaction like going to a bank. But what does meditation do? It grows the brain. In 2010, laser first came out paper. Now there are over 100 papers that shows meditation can actually create brain. People with, and that's not nothing very strange. We know stories of Vivekananda who went through a book, 500 pages book, page after page in a few seconds. The author, who was a famous British author, he got mad. He thought, Swamiji, you're insulting me. You didn't even look properly in my book. I gave you a 500-page book. You took few seconds to go through the pages. So Swamiji said, no, I read everything. You ask me a question, I'll answer it. So that is not a miracle. Even you can do it. The miracle is the fact is the practice of yoga. Practice of yoga increases your brain power, increases production of protein in your brain, increases your memory, removes the nerves that causes anxiety, stress, depression. So there are changes in brain chemistry. There's decreased production of noradrenaline and all the bad chemicals I talked about. All my talk that I have been giving, we have actual, if you notice, they're all by American authors or German authors. They're not by Indians who may be biased. So, and they are not people who are either Hindus or understand Indian culture that they'll be biased. They're all by physician scientists. So feel free to go through them so you understand the power of yoga in the real sense. Yoga completely changes your brain. Normally we have what is called alpha waves, we have called beta waves. So what is beta wave? Beta is rapid waves inside the brain. So I'm talking with you, the whole brain has beta wave. But I am looking at my computer and then I'm talking with you. So my area 18, 19 in the brain has slower waves called the alpha wave. But why am I talking to a computer? Am I crazy? I'm sitting inside my room is closed, I'm talking to my computer. No, I'm talking to other people through a Zoom. How do I know that? So brain is like a computer. So area 18, 19 goes to area 41, 42 above your ear and asks them what the hell is going on. So area 41, 42 say, oh, this is a computer, Zoom is a software. With the Zoom, I'm talking to people all over the world. It is just like you buy the world's latest computer. It might cost 10 lakh or $50,000, doesn't mind. It's the world's most powerful computer. You ask it to open a document, you buy a brand new computer, it cannot open up a document. Why? It will ask you, what software should I use? So you put in the software, you put in a Microsoft Word, it will open up Microsoft Word. You put in Adobe, it will open up an Adobe. Same with the brain. Brain has to have that software which tells it. So alpha waves are created when you go into meditation. And sadhus, some people have even deeper waves. People who have 60,000 hours of meditation have something called gamma waves. Now it is believed, if you can prove, you'll get Nobel Prize, that gamma wave is the frequency of the universal consciousness. But nobody knows. It's a highly, a controversial topic. So 60,000 hours has been done by Roger Davidson in his lab. He has taken the brains of Dalai Lama and a bunch of Hindu and Buddhist meditators and have seen them. So if this is the power of only 60,000 hours of meditation, imagine the brain of Ramakrishna, who went into samadhi in seconds. So that is the question. God has given the power to reach the infinite. And we always cry, oh, I am so poor, God has killed me, God has given me nothing. That is what yoga is about. God has given you the whole universe. You have the power. Modern science is proving what yoga said for 10,000 years. That's why in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, that he doesn't talk about God, he just talks about, it's a manual, how you need to drive your body to understand and reach the infinite. You have a modern car, you buy the world's latest Tesla. It is a couple of crores. And you want to drive it like a broken ambassador. Who is stopping you? You can absolutely drive it. But if you have to drive, if you have to make the Tesla, which is a self-driven car, then you have to read the manual, put in the appropriate switches, then the Tesla will drive you from wherever, from Bombay to Madras. And you can sit in the car, watch a movie, or read a magazine. But you have to read the manual. Similar is human body. You have to read the manual. Patanjali Yoga Sutra is not a religious book. It is not even a spiritual book. It is the manual of your and my existence. It is time that every scientist on this earth understands that. And it is a shame that we don't even understand it. And so yoga increases mTOR signaling. There is no drug in the world. There are 3 completely useless drugs for dementia. Couple of days back, they came out with a new drug that is extremely costly. Out of the 11 people in that FDA committee, 5 of them resigned because the drug was passed by FDA. FDA had to make a statement that we are forced to pass this drug, though its action is questionable, because we have no drugs. There are millions of people languishing in this country, all over the world, who don't know their name, who don't know where their son is, who know nothing about because of severe dementia. Yoga increases development of your brain. Yoga produces BDNF, brain-derived growth factor. And these are actual studies that I'm showing you. So next time when you go and talk about yoga, talk like a scientist. Don't talk like a spiritualist. Talk like a scientist. Do not talk, oh, it is my father taught me. I went to Canada for a talk, University of Canada, Toronto. There I have kids who are telling me they do puja because their father told you. So I said Hindu philosophy is one philosophy, Hindu religion, Advaita Vedanta is one Vedanta way. You should not listen to your father. Why? Because everything that Advaita is saying is true. Some of it has been proved, some of it has not been proved. In the last 20 years, a large number of things have been proved. And today, in end of my talk, you'll see, I'll be talking certain things about consciousness and physics a little bit to make you understand how powerful your body is if you really make use of it. If you read the manual. If you do not, if you want to drive your Tesla like a broken Toyota, God bless you. Who will stop you? Or you like a broken ambassador, God bless you. Who's stopping you? So it is important to understand the power of the body. Every inflammatory marker, interleukin, tumor necrosis factor that is produced in dangerous cancers, interleukin that kills. How many people have died, has been killed by COVID? Not even a single person has been killed by COVID. Again, I'm repeating in case any of you sitting there has not heard it. And this is from a scientist. This is not from somebody talking nonsense. I have treated COVID in those days where there was neither a vaccine nor a drug at my own risk. Not even a single person in this world has been killed directly by COVID. Why? Because COVID did not kill. What killed is your own body. You have something called SRSA, that is COVID stimulates a bunch of dangerous chemical from your body, like interleukin 6, that kills your lungs in 5 days. That's why when they did CT scan, when the dangerous strain came, in 5 days, the entire lung was completely washed out. It kills your liver, it kills your kidney, it causes huge clots in your brain, so you have massive strokes. So it's not the COVID which is killing you. It is your body's reaction to COVID. All these inflammatory markers, it has been found by science, and there are all references have been given, is reduced by practice of yoga. Nothing in this world can be proved, can be not prevented by yoga. There is completely changed in the genetic effect. The CTRA genes are completely subdued. The activation of CTRA genes can be changed in a very short time when you practice yoga in the real sense. But remember, yoga does not mean just doing some physical exercises. That is only 2% of yoga. You have great gurus nowadays speaking all sort of nonsenses about yoga. That's not yoga. Yoga, 98% of yoga is other parts of yoga, which includes pratyahara, that is keeping your mind from other external objects, that is concentration. Dharana, which I call mindfulness. So in America, there's a big shout, oh, we discovered mindfulness. That is stupid and idiotic. Mindfulness, dharana was there in Hindu philosophy for 10,000 years. Then dhyana, consciousness. Then comes samadhi, which we don't even understand what it is. It is a complete change in the level of consciousness. Sorry, I made a mistake. What I meant is dhyana, which is meditation. And then comes samadhi, which is change in your level of consciousness, which you don't even understand. It might take many more years. But, and most importantly, yoga can keep you young. You saw the gentleman who got Padma Shri this time. I think he's 120 years or something. 18 something. He was born at Sylhet in Bangladesh. He's a Bengali speaking gentleman who lived last 70 years at Kashi. Still at 125 or something, or 120, I don't remember the exact age. He early in the morning, 4 o'clock, he goes to the bank of Ganges in Benares and does those exercises. So now we have medical proof how yoga, by who? By this lady. She got Nobel Prize in 2009. That yoga might actually decrease aging. Yoga makes your brain grow. So all the things that causes aging, cardiovascular disease, cancer, damage to your brain, every day after 30 years of age, 200 to 300 neurons are dying. So it is like a bank balance. You have no money in a bank, you go to an ATM, you can kick the ATM as much as you think, you can break the ATM, but you'll get no money. So if you don't practice yoga today, every day 300 to 400 of your neurons will die. By the time 80 or 90, you might have very few and you might start getting dementia. So it is important to understand where science is coming from. The power of yoga is slowly getting understood. We've got multiple Nobel Prizes indirectly explaining yoga. When your grandmother, my grandmother did Upavas, people said these guys are doing it as ritual. Yes, they did it as ritual because we lost the science. The rishis who told us did not lose the science. They knew the science. But we lost the science and we took it as rituals. But today you do Upavas on a regular basis. Why? Because it is very celebrity-like. Because there is 2017, somebody got a Nobel Prize for intermittent fasting. So this separate Upavas, which was a ritual for 10,000 years, now everybody is gung-ho about it, starting from celebrity to scientist, because there's a Nobel Prize. Just the name has changed. Your poor grandma was doing it so that you live in a healthy life, and that's why our grandmas used to live till 80, 90 years, disease-free. Despite not having medicine, despite never going to a doctor, never ever going to a doctor. They did not need to. But today, we now know even the genetical changes that comes with stress can be completely reversed with practice of meditation. So these are some of the studies. I'm going to go quickly. I think my time may be already up. In yoga and meditation, there's a bunch of studies which actually show not only can you reduce the medication you're on for high blood pressure or control your blood pressure better, but you might actually stay off medication with appropriate practice. There are pranayam techniques which increase HRV. As I showed you, HRV decreases decreases HRV, causes sudden cardiac death, as you saw in KK and other people. Practice of yoga increases HRV, stabilizes your heart, prevents you from developing heart failure. You develop heart failure when you have low HRV. The autonomic nervous system activity is completely balanced, especially some of the Chandra Bheda Pranayam, that is breathing from the left nostrils, or doing Alonum Vilom actually increases the air. This is the next slide that we were talking about. So left nostril breathing can cause as much as 10 millimeter of mercury fall in your systolic and diastolic BP, whereas there's increase in HRV in the long run. So the entire parasympathetic sympathetic balance was known to the rishis thousands of years back. So all these techniques that we have, now we know it is working. Why? Because you have an Apple Watch, you can check your HRV. So go on practicing from today, see the difference in 6 months. You can guarantee that you'll never die suddenly. You can guarantee, you don't have to go to a doctor to guarantee that. Because the sun can come out from the west, but these that has been told for last 10,000 years can never be false. Shitali Pranayam, for example, cause significant reduction of blood pressure. Practice that every day and see if you're on multiple medicine for blood pressure. Bhramari increases HRV. Bhramari causes release of nitric oxide. That is the one that will prevent you from getting sudden cardiac death due to rupture of atherosclerotic plaque like KK had, or by having heart attack, or for having stroke, because nitric oxide is the chemical that causes vasodilation and saves your vasculature. So these are just some of the studies. They are all studies they're all randomized controlled trials. So the highest scientific, astute scientists have done this study to prove that they work. And it's slow breathing, there's nothing, you don't have to have a $10,000 device. You don't have to go to a doctor. You don't have to pay a private practitioner a ton of money. You sit in your home, in your own sofa set, on your own chair, and you practice. It will prevent you from getting any of these diseases. So yoga is saving costs. Today, even in America, I talked about India and the problem with having a cardiac epidemic in India that is going to happen. But even in America, the medical system is breaking down. Why? Because nobody can provide the huge cost of cardiovascular disease, especially when it is happening like malaria, like COVID. Millions of people having heart disease, 18-year-old having bypass surgery, 50-year-old dying suddenly due to massive heart attack. How many people are you going to treat when each cost millions and millions of dollars? So even the American health system is actually breaking down. So it is important to understand that yoga is the primary mechanism to save these diseases. Medicine is not. We talked about the hypothalamus pituitary axis. There's a bunch of studies that yoga causes relaxation response, which negates the hypothalamic pituitary axis. Excess release of cortisol, excess release of interleukin 6, deadly chemicals. Imagine interleukin 6 is increased 80 to 90 times in COVID. So in 5 days, your lung is reduced to a pulp. Your entire lung is reduced to a pulp. That is so toxic chemical. Now we have drugs like toxilumab that prevents that, but they can only be used in few circumstances. So that is what yoga will prevent. Yoga is so powerful. Sympathetic downregulation. None of this comes from the physical body. We have to understand that, and modern medicine is slowly understanding, though we don't understand mind, though we don't understand Annamaya Kosha, though we understand Annamaya Kosha, but we don't understand what Manomaya Kosha is. We don't understand what Pranamaya Kosha is. We don't understand what Vijnanamaya Kosha is. But we are slowly understanding that something is going on in the brain in the practice of yoga, that the brain is changing, and because the brain is changing, your body is changing. Who is changing the brain? You have to change the brain. How do you change the brain? You change the brain by practice of yoga, because today your brain is your master. Yoga makes you the master. Your brain should just be a slave, like that of your nerve, like that of your kidney, like that of your liver. But unfortunately, we are driving in a car where the driver does whatever he feels like. He can speed so much that he can kill us, or he can go so slow that we don't achieve anything in life. Both are bad. That's because we have left ourselves. We have got full control. We have got a self-controlled plane, but we have given it for auto driving because we don't practice yoga. So it is important to understand that most of these physical effects on the heart comes from the other three koshas, which is part of the astral body. And brain, remember, is just an instrument which understands what the astral body needs and accordingly does and accordingly makes changes. There is no drug in the world, as I said, that causes stress reduction than yoga. Now let's go to the causal body, these are the causal pictures showing the causal body. So I have to be very frank with you. Science has not progressed enough to understand causal body. So I'm going to show you some videos. I'll make you decide if the causal body plays a role in case of your heart or in case of my heart. We know the physical body is encased in the astral body. So the astral body, as we saw, your mind, your thought, your feeling, your emotion, your jealousy, your hatred, your anger, everything is manifested by the brain into your body and inside the brain also. In fact, it changes your gene. But does the causal body also make a difference? I don't know, because honestly, science has not reached that far. But I'm going to show you a couple of slides and I'll leave you to make the decision today. So Swami Vivekananda said the whole universe is one. There is only one self in the universe, one existence. And I don't know if how many of you know, he talked about this in one of his London lectures, which is way before the E is equal to MC square, which is not exactly what he's trying to say. He's trying to say something different, but just for the sake of our understanding, let's understand that this was said by years before even we understood there's really nothing called matter. Matter and energy is one. There's only one. There's prana. And the matter is just a lower vibration of that prana. And as you know, Einstein did not believe it. So Einstein said, no, there is a physical entity and there is energy. So if you have a physical entity, the physical entity needs a third element to communicate with each other. So now that I'm communicating with you, I'm using sound wave. But if you need to communicate with a star next door, you have to use light wave, because the light will also take 4.2 years to reach the next star. But what Vivekananda says is the whole universe is one. If the whole universe is one, then there should not be a third element needed to communicate. The whole universe should be communicating with each other. So, of course, when Vivekananda said this, everybody thought that this is a philosopher. His statement is a philosophical statement. No, my friend, he spoke the truth. Why? Because he went into deep meditation. Remember how stupid we are. We think people who go into deep meditation are not scientists. Why? Because we think science happens in the lab. How stupid is that? Did Tesla discover electricity in the lab? No. He dreamt of alternate current, and that's how he discovered alternate current. Today, the entire planet is living because of alternate current. Did E is equal to mc square and light bends, was it discovered by Einstein in a lab? No. 30 years after Einstein discovered it, the light bent was shown by a British cosmologist. 30 years, not 1, 2, 30 years. It just came into Einstein's mind, and he did the equation while he was a postman in Vienna, in Austria. So mind is a powerful instrument. Today, most of the discoveries happen in the mind. You don't have to have a lab. So I don't consider people like Swami Vivekananda just only spiritualists. They are actual scientists, because they have developed that extra sense that nature has given us to understand the reality, because you are part of the reality. You are the reality. So if you don't understand the reality, who will understand? The only difference is you got to have a brain that understands. Suppose today I get 10 liters of milk, and then I decide tomorrow my office tells me that you have to go for a tour to some other place. So you're my next door neighbor, and I come to you and say, hey, unfortunately I just bought 4 liters of milk. Tomorrow I have to leave city for official job. Would you mind taking some of this milk? You say, sure. And then you bring a small bucket, a small bowl for milk. Can you take 4 liters of milk in a bucket? In a small bowl? No. You need a bucket for that. Similarly, you have to develop your brain. You have to create that brain within you that can take this information. So Einstein did the famous experiment called the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen experiment, which showed, and Einstein understood that, for the first time proved that Einstein was wrong. What did he do in this experiment? The experiment was this, that if you we'll talk about the experiment in the next movie, but basically what it showed is, if we have 2 electrons, if you take those electrons to the other part of the universe also, those electrons can communicate with each other instantaneously. Let's see this this video.
Quantum mechanics shows us that reality is merely an illusion. It has been more than 100 years since we started decoding the universe at the tiniest scale. Over the years, we have discovered several intriguing phenomena in quantum physics, but the most interesting is quantum entanglement. This is such a mind-boggling reality that even Albert Einstein doubted its existence. He called it spooky action at a distance. To get an idea of how quantum entanglement works, consider this simple example. Suppose you have a pair of gloves, and you place 2 of them in 2 different boxes. After that, you shuffle the boxes and ask your friend to open one of the boxes. If he opens the box and finds a right-handed glove, then without opening the second box, you know that it contains a left-handed glove. This will remain true even if you take the second box to the moon or anywhere in the universe. That's because the 2 gloves were entangled entities and had a connection between them. One was right-handed and the other was left-handed. But things become spooky when you try to apply this principle to particles in the quantum realm. Particles have an intrinsic property called spin. Before you measure it, it can be in any direction. To measure the spin, first you need to specify the direction in which you wish to measure it. If you want to measure it horizontally, then the 2 possible outcomes will be left-handed or right-handed. If you wish to measure it vertically, then the 2 outcomes would be either up or down. Consider the spin of 2 particles. As mentioned earlier, before measurement it can point in any direction. Let's now measure the spin of one particle along the horizontal direction.
Then the measured spin will be either right or left, each having a 50% chance. Even if you select the second particle for measurement, you will get the same results, 50% right and 50% left. However, if the particles are entangled just like the gloves, see what happens. If you measured the spin of the first particle and found it right, then the outcome of the second particle will be 100% left. So, the information of measurement got to the second particle the moment the first measurement was made. And here's the spooky thing. This information is transmitted instantaneously. If you make the measurement in one part of the universe, the quantum information can be sent to the entangled particle instantaneously, even in the opposite part of the cosmos. Remember, traveling at 300,000 kilometers per second, light is the fastest thing in the universe. But quantum entanglement is independent of it. So far, it was believed that quantum entanglement is purely a quantum phenomenon. However, scientists have recently observed this spooky action on a macroscopic scale. Entanglement is actually a correlation between two things. In the experiment, two teams of scientists crafted two aluminum drums of a red blood cell size. Each of these drums has roughly 1 trillion atoms. They placed them on a crystal chip and supercooled the setup to near absolute zero. Finally, they hit both the drums with microwaves. Struck by the microwaves, each drum vibrated, rising up and down by about the width of a proton. This minuscule motion was detectable as a change in the voltage of a circuit connected to the drums. When the drums are entangled, their amplitudes will be correlated. If one drum is measured to have a high amplitude, the other must have a low amplitude. The experiment was set up so meticulously that there was no way the drums could communicate with each other mechanically. The microwaves served as the intermediary that lets them talk to each other. You might be wondering what the purpose of such experiments is. As things become large, they no longer exhibit exotic quantum behavior. The goal of such investigations is to bring something big into the quantum realm.
So if you think this is mind-boggling, the next is even more mind-boggling. The small grass on which you walk, thousands of grass which you kill every day, thanks to the nature, that has got a property, a technology that even human being doesn't have. It's mind-boggling technology is way behind what the best that even human being has created till now. So let's take a look at that.
The leaf, it turns out, is a remarkable piece of technology. Light lands on a leaf in quantum energy packets called photons. Every second it spends in bright sunlight brings a leaf thousands of trillions of photons. And almost every one of the red ones is captured and its energy processed. Let's trace the path of that energy through the plant. The first stop is the antenna, an assembly of hundreds of thousands of chlorophyll molecules. Hit by the photon, an electron within the chlorophyll will become excited and use the extra energy to bounce through the antenna to a bridging area. This is composed of a complicated arrangement of chlorophyll molecules. You can imagine it as an intertwined maze of rope bridges that, if you can find the path through, lead to the all-important reaction center. Once at the reaction center, the electron creates a permanently separated charge that is essentially energy that can be stored. It's the same thing that makes a fully charged battery such a useful source of power. At that point, the energy is safe and properly stored, ready for use by the plant. There's just one catch. The reaction center is a nearly impossible place to reach. Getting through the bridging area is a nightmare, and it has to be done quickly. The maze of wobbly rope bridges will absorb all the photon's energy if it takes too long to find the reaction center. A packet of energy has about 1 nanosecond to get across the bridge. Some might chance upon the right path and make it through in time. Most, though, won't. This is where the quantum tricks and Gregory Scholl's research team comes in. Their conclusion? Our results suggest that the energy of absorbed light resides in two places at once. This weird phenomenon is officially known as quantum superposition. It is written into the mathematics of quantum theory, which describes the position of a particle only in terms of probabilities of finding it in various different places. In certain circumstances, the particle can occupy multiple positions at once. And it turns out that to achieve the remarkable efficiency of photosynthesis, algae and their evolutionary descendants, plants, employ quantum superposition so that the energy can simultaneously travel along all possible paths to the reaction center. That way, it always gets there on time. As far as we understand it, when a photon of sunlight hits a leaf, its energy is passed to electrons within the leaf's chlorophyll molecules. Those excited electrons move to the reaction center not by random hops, as was thought, but by exploiting their quantum mechanical ability to take all available paths at the same time. It's such an exciting discovery because it raises the possibility that we could do the same. If the messy world of biology can exploit this quantum mechanical trick to the maximum by evolutionary trial and error, perhaps we can deliberately engineer the same feats to occur in our own solar panels.
So if an electron can communicate with its partner millions of light years away, millions or maybe billions of light years away, because it's infinite, we do not know where the end of the universe is, it should not be difficult to imagine that our causal body must be communicating with its astral and physical body. If an algae can use that sort of technology, which you don't even understand completely, an algae, remember, is the oldest predecessor of the normal tree. Then imagine what a human body with its tree can do. It's far beyond today's science, but there will be a day when we will understand. But there's an easier way, that is through the path of yoga. With that, I'd like to end. I wanted to point out this is the world's first book on the principles of practice of yoga in cardiovascular medicine. It has been written by over 75 authors from Harvard, from Emory, from All India Institute, from PGI Chandigarh, from NIMHANS, and it brings all the research to use yoga as a therapy in cardiovascular disease. So with the blessings of God, this is the first time a medical book for physicians to understand how yoga can be used as a therapy. I'll stop there now. I'll be open to questions.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Indranill Ray, for such a fantastic and exciting session. We wish we could go through the whole night. Now it's evening here, so we can go for hour after hour. Dirghakala Nairantariyena Satkara Sevida Dridabhumihi, as Patanjali says. So Dirghakala, without stop, you go on and on. And how our great sages have developed the science of yoga. And unfortunately, India, we did not document it except through the chain of Guru Shishya Parampara. And since it was all oral teaching and it was not shared with anybody and everybody, and too much of invasions and killings and destruction of our knowledge, we lost much of it, but nothing is really lost in this universe. And we are so happy that you are trying to revive this, rediscover it, rejuvenate it, and spread this great message in a very, very scientifically acceptable fashion for which the whole world should thank you and your team. So we will be very happy to closely work with you, as you were suggesting the other day. So we profusely thank you for it. And we end the session with a Shanti Mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Strange mathematics of the infinite. With that, we will start.
Thank you, AmritMahotsav, for having me. I'm thankful to you. Absolutely need your blessings and support for a lot of things that we are doing. We'll be in touch with you. I'll email you and we'll be in touch with you and we'll take it from there.
It's a great pleasure for us to work with you. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody has any questions or should we close the session?
Close the session.